All right, guys, welcome back in episode 16 of the ATD Baseball Podcast. Me and Kyle today, we got a lot of good topics, I think, today to break down. But Kyle, how are you doing? Mel and I were talking about you got a chance to talk to Glaber on the podcast last week. So, of course, we got to ask, how did that go for you?
Oh yeah, man. It was a very, very kind of special moment for me. Obviously being a Yankee fan, being able to interview Gleyber Torres was definitely something that, kind of was a very cool experience for me. He's a great guy and the company that we worked with, Kingsbred was, all of them were great. Yeah, it was a great experience overall for sure.
Nice. Glad to hear it. We haven't gotten an update though. How are you doing dealing with the Heat loss in the finals?
Oh man, I'm kind of over it now. It stung, two championship losses in the last recent history. It stings a little bit, but you know what? I didn't even expect the Heat to be there. So, it's all good. It's all good.
That's fair. Taking what you can get, at least being thankful you made it to the finals and well, made it out of the play-in game really because they were down from there on. But
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that because this is a baseball podcast, so we're gonna get to the baseball. Just to run down quick what we got on tap today for you guys. The Mets. Well, we'll start with the Cardinals, I should say. The Cardinals, they're kind of officially bad now, and it's gotten to the point where it's getting out of hand. They're very disappointing at this point. But we're going to dive into that in a second. The Mets, are they old, or do they just have good veteran pitchers or players? It kind of depends how you look at it, because I guess if they're doing bad, then you're going to say they're old. If they're doing all right, then you're going to say they're just good veterans. Either way, we'll talk about that in a little bit. The A's, obviously, they had a very, I would say, pretty successful reverse boycott. It was like 27,000 people in the stands. Um, got their point across that there are A's fans in the Bay Area there, that they will show up if the baseball's good. And then my Phillies actually turning around. We are officially above 500, baby. Let's go. I know that's common territory for the Yankees, but us Phillies fans this year will take it. It's been like over a month since we've been above 500. Coming off a sweep of the D-backs, love that. And then the San Diego Padres. Yes, people, we're talking about the Padres again. It's about every episode on this podcast, but and none of us are Padres fans. It's kind of weird, but they've been deserving of all the talk so far. But Phillies and Padres looking to be up on the up and up. And then last of all, we're gonna play a little game, I guess you could say. Buy, sell, or hold teams that are hanging around that 500 line right now. But bring it all right back. St. Louis Cardinals. I think they're officially bad at this point. Currently sitting at 27 and 42, last place in the NL Central. Solid 8.5 games back of the Pirates, who are in first place in that division. But if there was really any fantastic teams in that division, they'd be like 15 games back, with the NL Central just being so bad. But I've been speaking for like 2 minutes straight now. Kyle, what are you thinking about the Cardinals right now?
Yeah, no. I mean, I've expressed my worry about this club for quite some time now. This team just isn't good. And I mean, on paper they're good, but on the field, this team just is not producing at all. And it's very, very shocking to say the least. Um, I mean, I still don't understand what the problem is. I really don't. I understand that the pitching is not top tier, but this lineup is on paper one of the best in baseball, easily top 10. So the way that I look at it is, I'm researching this stuff. I'm looking at Goldie's numbers. I'm looking at Arenado's numbers. I'm looking at Contreras' numbers. It doesn't add up to me at all. And this offense is just completely underperforming. Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I'm not holding out any hope for them for the rest of the season. Now, am I going to take it as far as and say, maybe they're sellers at the deadline? No, I don't think so. I think they just need to retool this team in some sort of way because I don't see how you are gonna try to blow up what you have here. I mean, you have a third and first baseman combo that anybody in the league would kill for. So, I mean, just kind of take that and build around it. Figure out what's wrong with this club internally, and then once the offseason comes, just retool because this club is too good to blow up just yet. If if this has been going on for the last few seasons, I would understand blowing it up at the deadline. But right now, where they're at, I don't think it's worth it, in my opinion.
I'd have to agree because blowing it up, who knows what all that would entail. And I can't imagine trading Goldie and Arenado just because the contracts that they're on right now. I don't think anybody's, not that they're untradeable, but like those aren't players you trade really as an organization. Unless you're the Oakland A's, they're not players that you trade typically. And they, like you said, they have too many stars and too many studs on their team, really. And when you look at even the outfield situation is something that's been talked about a lot this whole season, as they sort of have an abundance of outfielders, even after trading away your man Harrison Bader to the Yankees last year. And now, they got top prospect Jordan Walker getting called up, and he's an outfielder. They got plenty of depth there, but then even like you said, you run down the name of guys in this lineup. Goldschmidt at first, Brendan Donovan, I believe, plays second base. You got shortstop Tommy Edman, who had an insane season last year. He was like one of the leaders in WAR throughout the whole season. And then you got Arenado at third. You got Contreras behind the dish. I know there was, whatever was going on there with him catching or not catching, whatever. It was weird. But and then you got the outfielders. You got O'Neill. Honestly, Jordan Walker. And then I know Dylan Carlson's on their team. Lars Nootbaar fits in there somewhere.
There too.
Nolan Gorman.
Yeah.
And then that's a good lineup on paper. It doesn't seem to make sense.
Yes.
On the pitching end, I understand there are some issues there. Jack Flaherty, it just hasn't seemed to work for him recently. He's been having decent starts. He has a lot of walk issues, it seems like. Giving up a lot of walks in games. There was like a game early in the season. He gave up like no runs, like one hit, but he had like 7 walks. It was such a weird stat line. But either way, it doesn't seem to be working out for him. I believe he could be a candidate, I think, to be traded just because I think he's either at the end of his contract or has an option after this season. So seeing as the Cardinals might say, hey, we're going to part ways with you anyway, we're going to deal you to somebody, see if they can figure it out and get some pieces back. Wainwright, you can't expect too much out of him anymore at this point in his career. I know he's been injured some this year too. Your guy, Jordan Montgomery, has I'd say maybe been the best pitcher for them this year, and he has not been great. So it's sort of been disappointing for them on the pitching front. I think their closer, Helsley, I know he's a reliever. I don't know if he's a closer or not, but I think he is. He's been injured too, and it's just sort of been a disaster. It doesn't seem like things are getting put together. Obviously, drama surrounding the team too with O'Neill and Contreras not getting along with Ali Marmol. It just doesn't seem like something's not clicking for them. I don't know what it is, but I definitely see some trades in their future. But definitely not, to me, it's not trades like what the Cubs did or what the A's do all the time, trading their superstars away for pieces for like 4 years down the line. They're probably more looking to trade, hey, we'll fix your problem by giving away something that we have, and you fix our problem by giving away something that you have. It's sort of like a win-win deal for each team. And those are sort of rare in Major League Baseball, but that's really what the Cardinals need because they're not going to rebuild with Goldie and Arenado on their team.
Yeah, exactly. Me personally, if I had to put it out there right now, I would say Tyler O'Neill is probably the top trade candidate in my opinion. And then obviously, like you said, Jack Flaherty is a candidate as well. So yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. I don't see how they blow it up, but I do see trades in the near future.
It'll definitely be interesting. O'Neill, I mean, we made a video the other day. He was like sixth in NL MVP in 2021, I think. Like, he's had great years. He's a good ball player. Um, it's just
Yep.
it's too crowded out there in outfield for them right now. And, maybe a change of scenery would be good for his production as well. I guess we'll have to see. But at this point, they stink, and I don't see them making the playoffs this year. And that's not a hot take or anything, seeing as they're, like 20 game, not quite 20 games under 500, but like 15 games under 500. But we'll move on. The New York Mets, they've been in a bit of a slide lately. 2-8 in their last 10, sitting at 32 and 36 right now. Fourth place in the NL East. My Phillies did all this work, and they're 9-1, I think, or 8-2 in their last 10. And all we did was swap places with the Mets because the Marlins decided to go on a heater too. And obviously the Braves are on a continual heater all the time. But Mets, when you go down their roster and look at some of the ages of players that are on their team, just to name a few here: Justin Verlander, 40 years old; Max Scherzer, 38 years old; Carlos Carrasco, 36 years old; even Kodai Senga, who they brought in, 30 years old. And then we go to the lineup: McNeil's 31, Mark Canha, 34, and Starling Marte, 34. And then a guy who's been somewhat integral to them this year, Tommy Pham, 35 years old. Eduardo Escobar, 34 years old. And it's good to have veteran pieces. But at what point does it just, hey, you're just an old team and you spend a bunch of money on old pitchers in specific?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of crazy when you actually go down the list and name the ages of some of these guys. But um the Yankees were just in town for the Subway Series. Obviously, I got to look at the Mets for 2 games. Um and I got to look at their two best pitchers, Scherzer and Verlander. Um I don't think that they're an old team. But I don't think that they have a good mix, if that makes sense. That's kind of like where I sit. Um, the Mets are obviously underperforming this season. Some of their guys who are at the older age, they are still very valuable players. I look at Marte, I look at Mark Hanna, I look at, Verlander, Scherzer. These guys can produce at a very good level still at their age. But like I said, I mean, and they do have Alvarez, they have Vientos, Brett Beatty as well. These guys, it's like one or the other with the Mets, I feel. You got a really old guy or you got a really young guy, and there's like really no mix. And I mean, I don't know, maybe age is catching up to some of these guys, and that's the reason why the Mets are underperforming so far. But I don't want to say that they're old because these guys are very easily big producers at any given level, and it's not like these guys were all in slumps last season. I mean, Justin Verlander won the Cy Young last year, so I still think that these guys can produce. I just feel like it's a very extreme on each end with this team.
That's fair. Just to read a couple stats for Scherzer and Verlander, the two pitchers they signed in back-to-back years now. Max Scherzer on the season, a 4.45 ERA through 56 innings pitched, and he has a 1.2 WHIP on the season. And Verlander, pretty similar numbers, a 4.4 ERA through 45 innings pitched, and also a 1.2 ERA or WHIP on the season. Not great numbers from the guys that you were paying a lot of money to come on, join your squad. And obviously with Verlander, the signs weren't there that he was going to be declining. Like you said, he just won Cy Young last year. That's evidence to say, hey, this guy deserves a big contract as he got. But I mean, at this point, it's a little rough watching. And Verlander had a good performance just last night, right, against the Yankees. I think
Yeah.
he only gave up like 3 hits or something, 1 earned run, something like that. And
Yeah.
he
Him and
definitely
Cole were
has
going back and
those.
forth.
Yeah, he definitely has those in the tank, but it's just they have not been as consistent this year. Age seems to be catching up with them. Now we're looking at a little bit in advance because I think he signed a 2 year deal. So then he'd be, I would predict maybe he retires after his tenure with the Mets, after his second year with the Mets, Verlander, because he's going to be, 41 or 42 at that point. But I don't know. Maybe he thinks he's got more in the tank. But when you're looking at a 4.4 ERA this season, signs aren't looking too great. Mets aren't looking too great. But then again, hey, they could maybe turn it around, turn it on. Alonso, who's been a big catalyst for their offense, has been on the injured list past couple of days. So I don't know. Are you starting to get a little worried about the Mets?
Um, I mean, I it's so hard to tell because obviously they're not where like the Cardinals are, but like we said, time is ticking for these teams. The ones who are underperforming, you can only say it's only April, it's only May for so long. Um, so obviously I think there is some worry to be done in Queens, but um yeah, it's it's tough, man, because this team I predicted to be in the World Series this year. And it's just like the Cardinals. I mean, this team is good. That's what I don't understand. This team is very, very good. They have the highest payroll in baseball. I mean, it's honestly crazy when you translate from paper to the field sometimes of how these teams, underperform. And I think that's where just the Mets are right now. But yeah, I mean, I'm worried about them. Obviously, time is ticking, and you got the Marlins who are playing extremely hot, and you got the Phillies in front of you, who are also underperforming. So at any given moment, the Phillies could turn it on and run away, and then the Mets will have no chance. So, I mean, that's just where it is right now.
It's definitely a tough road for the Mets to make a comeback, but I'm not going to say it's impossible because there's a lot of baseball left to be played, close to 100
Yeah,
games still. So it's not full on panic mode, but it's probably trending into that direction as of right now.
yeah.
Now, what's been a disaster for a long time, the Oakland A's franchise, sort of as a whole, definitely you could say the stadium and Coliseum, or the Coliseum in Oakland there, has been a disaster for a long time. And at this point, sort of seems like they're going to be moving to Vegas. They just had the reverse boycott 2 nights ago, I believe, and it was a nice show. A nice show. 27,000 fans showed up. Um, Obviously, A's ended up beating the Rays, and they split the series now, each 2-2. So that's kind of crazy to see. But the A's were on a nice heater before that too, on like a 7 game win streak. Coming Not coming into that game. That was their seventh game, I think, in a row. But either way, the A's, their fans showed up and they showed that, hey, we're here if you put a decent, we can be here if you put a decent team onto the field, a decent show for us to watch. It's just the A's owner hasn't done that. But on the same day that the reverse boycott was, I believe it was signed into, not signed into legislation, but like it was voted on and passed or something to have them buy the land in Nevada there in Las Vegas. So sort of seems like they're going to be going through with that plan anyway to sign a deal to bring them to Las Vegas. But what did you think of the A's reverse boycott?
First off, I want to say thank you to the Oakland Athletics for kind of chopping down that AL East lead a little bit. But I loved this reverse boycott. I really did. I'm a firm believer and somebody who's been against the Oakland Athletics moving to Las Vegas. The Athletics are I mean, they are a storied franchise. When you look back and see some of the history regarding the Oakland Athletics, it's there. I mean, it's a very, very distant memory now for A's fans, but this team has had some very, very historical moments. And for me, I don't want them out of Oakland. I love them in Oakland. The fans are here. I mean, they literally just proved it. They're here. So it's either you sell the team or you put a winning product on the field. And you don't just, trade away your franchise players for literally nothing. I mean, has any of these guys panned out that they've traded for? And I understand that they're, a lot of them are younger prospects, so you got to give them more time. But they have had some big trades in the last 2 years. I mean, even from the Yankees standpoint, when they traded for Frankie Montas, they got JP Sears and Ken Woldachuk. Neither of them have really panned out. I mean, Sears is okay, but none of them's really panned out for the Athletics. Pache, who is now on the Phillies, that was the big piece that they got back for Olson. So, when you look at it, none of these trades have really worked out in their favor. So for me, it's like it's either you sell the team if you don't want to spend the money, or you figure something out. You bring in, you just do something to put a winning product on the field so the fans can be there. That's exactly why the fans aren't there. And to be honest with you, I don't blame them. But they have just proved that they are here and they're watching, but they're watching from a distance. Because I'm sorry, I mean, if I was an A's fan, there's no way in hell I'd be at those games. I'm sorry, I just wouldn't. So I understand where they're coming from. And I love seeing, what they did. And as I said before, I think they should stay in Oakland, but that's just me personally.
On the topic of you said about none of their players really panning out for trades. Shea Langeliers, I believe, was in the yes, he was in the Matt Olson trade, and then
Okay.
they had another player. I think that was Ruiz. Asturi Ruiz was part of a trade a long time ago. If you remember, legendary A's pitcher Trevor Cahill. Cahill, I'm not sure.
Oh
Cahill,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, he was traded in part of that deal, which is it's kind of weird to think of. But not a lot of the pieces, like you said, panning out. I think they cut, well, not cut, but DFA'd, Pache, and that's how the Phillies picked him up. That's really disappointing because he was like the Braves' top prospect.
He
And
was,
then
yeah.
now you look at some of the players that the Braves have on their team, and the A's, if they had decent management, would be kicking themselves saying, hey, we could have got Spencer Strider. We could have got Bryce Elder. We could have got maybe the shortstop, Vaughn Grissom,
Yeah.
any of those guys that they called up out of nowhere that, well, I mean, some of them were higher prospects for the Braves, but like some of them didn't really, nobody knew that these guys were going to be top prospects or anything. So, like you said, they need to put a winning product on the field or sell the team at this point. And
Yep.
it sort of seems like neither of those are going to be in the works, and it's going to be option C. We're moving to Las Vegas, and
But yeah, so like the thing I have about that is what's going to change if you move to Vegas? Nothing's going to change because it's still going to be the same owner. It's still going to be the same exact team that you have, except for what now? Now you have flashy Las Vegas in the back instead of Oakland. There's literally no difference. It doesn't make sense to me. You have the same product on the field, and I can guarantee you're going to lose fans because of, this whole thing. So what exactly is going to change here unless you either sell the team or you put a winning product on the field? Moving from Oakland to Vegas is not going to change anything. And that's another part that just doesn't make sense to me.
and a definitely a big piece of the whole situation here is the Coliseum kind of sucks as a stadium. From what I've heard, never been there, but from what I've heard, a lot of stories this season. Not a great stadium to be at. So I don't blame all those Oakland A's fans for not wanting to show up to the Coliseum because it's not a good event. First of all, you're coming to watch crappy baseball and watch your favorite team get kicked in the teeth, every night and lose by 5 runs every night. That's not fun. And then if you're going there and there's like rats running around on the floor, that's not a good experience. To cap it all off, you're there with maybe 2 or 3 thousand other fans. If you're
Yeah.
lucky, maybe 6,000 other fans. That's not a fun baseball experience, really. It's one thing if there's that many in college game at a college game or a minor league game, but like you see these MLB teams, the Dodgers and the Braves and the Phillies and the Yankees, consistently getting those 20,000 and plenty more fans though every night. So it's just not a good overall experience right now for A's fans. And it sort of is all traced back to the owner. Could he pony up the money to make a new stadium? Yes, to build a new stadium. And I understand there's lots of hoops to jump through there too, like in terms of getting the city to vote for this. And, you got to have land cleared up and you got to buy that land. You got to be allowed to build on that land. And then, all the things that are surrounding that. And it's a multi-year process. But go ahead and start the process, my guy, because it's been long overdue.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I think that ends our A's rant, and I know they're probably not a hot topic to talk about, but it's definitely a hot topic within Major League Baseball to talk about. So we'll move on from them, though. I will try and talk about Phillies and Padres right now, real quick. As I said earlier, I referenced them a little bit. My Phillies playing pretty good right now. 8-2 in their last 10, sitting finally one game above 500, third place in the division. And speaking of the A's, Phillies have a series with them coming up, a nice little 3-game series over this weekend. Maybe we can put together back-to-back sweeps. I don't know. That'd be nice. After sweeping the D-backs here. So love that for me. And then before that, it was taking 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. And before that, it was sweeping the Tigers. So, we're on a nice little run right here, right now. And like to sweep the Diamondbacks in a 4-game set is pretty impressive at this point in the season. Just to read you the scores here, Phillies took. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Phillies did not sweep the Diamondbacks. I've been reporting false information this whole time. The Diamondbacks took game 1. I apologize. Take 3 out of 4 from the Diamondbacks. And then Phillies won game 2, 15-3. And then 4-3 yesterday, and then 5-4 today, Thursday. So Phillies are on a nice little run right now. Bryson Stott's on a nice little run right now. He's had like 10 hits in the last 2 or 3 days, something insane like that. And Ranger Suarez finally made a nice start. Wheeler has had a nice start in the last couple days. I'm finally starting to believe a little bit again. How's it look from the outside, Kyle?
Yeah, so obviously living in Pennsylvania, I'm not a Phillies fan, obviously, but I live very close to where the Phillies play. So, for me, I get to see a lot of Phillies, and they obviously started not so good, underperforming completely. But it's nice to see this team finally come around. And I've stated before, I am a person who, if your team is going to spend, I want to see them win, because the owner is out there putting a good product on the field and giving the fans something to look at, something to come and have fun and watch the game. And that's what the Phillies have done. I believe they had the 4th highest payroll in all of baseball. And they have a very good team. They were just underperforming. So seeing this team finally start to turn things around a little bit and get the juices flowing, it's June. So Kyle Schwarber is obviously doing his thing, which still makes no sense to me, but whatever. And another person who I have not heard a lot of people talk about too much surrounding baseball, and that's Nick Castellanos. I believe he's hitting over 300 this year. He looks good, man. He looks really, really good. And it's a nice sight to see because, obviously we saw what he did last year. Not much. So,
yeah,
he wasn't living up to the contract, and everything else is clicking for the Phillies right now. They're up there with one of the highest, or the lowest ERAs in baseball regarding the bullpen. Bullpen looks good. The pitching staff has been good as of late, and the lineup's finally clicking. So, who knows? Maybe this is start for the Phillies and get things going again.
That's the hope. You mentioned Nick Castellanos. He's hitting 315 on the season right now. Almost he's got 1.7 WAR for the season, so that's pretty good. B WAR, so that's factoring defense in a lot, which somehow the Phillies have managed to turn Nick Castellanos into a not too bad defender to be,
Yeah.
which is nice coming from his Cincinnati days. Um, 8 home
Yep.
runs on the season, and like you said, he's been an unspoken hero sort of for the Phillies this season. Um, we'll flip gears here. The Padres, though, they've also been on a bit of a heater lately. You know, now sure, they're still sitting in fourth place in the division, which is tough. 33 and 34, so they're one game under 500. 7-3 in their last 10. Right now, they're trying to. I think it's going to be a sweep of the Guardians. Uh, yeah, they took two out of three so far, and then the last game tonight. And coming off of that, they beat the Rockies, swept the Rockies. So 2 out of 3 from the Rockies. Matt, get your sweeps straight here. Anyway, Padres. Kind of the story has been Fernando Tatis has been really turning it on and quietly sort of having an MVP caliber season. Now he is definitely significantly lower than Ronald Acuna, and I checked today in like literally every statistical category. So I'm not going to say he's going to be MVP or anything, but he's been having an insane season, bounce back so far this year, and he keeps hitting nukes like every game, every other game. He's hitting a home run. It seems like, and which is great for baseball, I think. If it would have came out and he would have laid a goose egg this season, and it's like, well, this was literally he was just juicing, and that's the only reason he was able to hit home runs. That would have been terrible for Major League Baseball. That does not seem to be the case. So even as just a Phillies fan and just a baseball fan, that's a little bit of a sigh of relief. Now Melo, he's probably shaking in his boots right now. He's scared of Tatis, if I had to guess. No, I don't quote me on that, Melo. Don't call me out on that. But how we feeling about the Padres now too?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I feel like this episode has a very trendy thing, talking about teams that have underperformed, and the Padres are another one. It's nice to see them, come around again and start to get things going. This team is very, very dangerous when they're all clicking. I mean, you look at that top four of the lineup, and it's probably the best in baseball. Your 1 through 4 is definitely, up there. So I've been saying it for weeks. It's just a matter of time before this team starts clicking and getting things going. And obviously fourth place right now, but like we said, they underperform. So maybe getting on this little streak that they have going on could launch them higher in the standings and basically just get them back to where everybody predicted them to be.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, who are you feeling more confident about, Phillies or Padres?
Phillies, if I
I'm
had to
gonna have
guess.
to. I'm gonna have to agree with that.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna move on. We like to end the episode on a little bit of a fun note. Usually, we like to do a little, maybe a game or a little bit of a ranking or something at the end here. Today, buy, sell, or hold. Obviously, this is in relation, to the stock market, and we're both big time daytime traders. Kyle and I, we're obviously both way ups in the stocks. But right now, we're going to be buying MLB team stocks, and we're going to be doing it for teams around 500 because that's the easiest one. Whether you're going to be jumping on the train now, jumping off the train now, or just sitting on the train for a little while. So first off, your big time rivals, the Boston Red Sox, sitting at 34 and 35. What are we doing with the Red Sox, Kyle?
Oh man. I really don't want to do this because the Yankees open a 3-game set against them tomorrow. Oh my God. I want to say hold, I really do, but because of the competitiveness in the AL East, I mean, there's a chance that I might even. No, I'm not going to go that far with my Yankees, but I'm gonna say sell right now with the Red Sox just because of the division that we're in. I mean, this is obviously the most competitive division in baseball, so I they're in fifth place right now. I gotta say sell just solely because of the division they're in.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree any more. Sell for me. But if they were in the AL Central, I would
Oh
probably
yeah,
be buying or holding because if they were in the AL Central, I'd like to believe that they would be attempting to bring in some more pieces at the trade deadline. But just with
yep.
the division they're in, it's not going to happen. It's just too good of a division. and they don't really have a shot at a wild card spot either. So we're both gonna be selling the Red Sox stock for now. Okay. Now here's an interesting one. The Seattle Mariners have not talked about them a lot this year because they've sort of been disappointing. Currently sitting at 33 and 34. What are we doing with the Mariners, Kyle?
Mm. This is another tough one. Oh man, I really don't want to sell, but yet again, it's the same as the Red Sox. I'm saying sell solely because of the division they're in. I mean, you got the Astros and you got Texas in front of you. It's and the way they're playing, I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I really do because I love what the Mariners are doing, but just because of the underperformance and the division and the two teams that are ahead of them, I have to sell on them.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. I still would like to think that they're going to make some moves at the trade deadline because their team is sort of too stacked to just let it all
Yeah.
go to waste, so to say. I'm going to hold right now on the Mariners. I'm not there to buy. I think that they should make some moves at the trade deadline. They have a lot of good starting pitching, and definitely could be some big trade pieces for them. Part of the reason I'm also saying hold instead of sell, the Astros have been hit with injuries really bad lately. And Astros, first of all, is they got off to not a poor start, but like not the start they were expecting to the season. So
Hmm.
the gap between them isn't as big as the Astros were 100% hoping it to be.
Yeah.
So it leaves a little bit of space there for the Mariners to still make a comeback, I think. And that's why I'm going with hold instead of sell. Now I'll flip over to the National League side. Listen, I had to do it. My Phillies, 35 and 34. Come on. It was, let's just supposed to say bye and move on. No, I'm kidding. What do you got?
Um, I am buying into them. This is a team that I feel, I mean, we just talked about it a little bit ago. They're too stacked to be able to stay where they're at. So obviously it really depends on for me with the Phillies, it depends on their pitching. The lineup's there, 100%. But can Wheeler keep it up? Because we've seen flashes of him and Nola both where they weren't that great this season. So if they can keep up what they're doing, and with Ranger Suarez coming off an amazing start, if he can get going, then I'm 110% buying into this team. The pitching staff worries me a little bit, but they need to keep doing what they're doing. So I'm gonna say buying in on this team, and who knows? I mean, I don't know how long the Marlins can keep this up. Whatever they're pumping in their Gatorade in the dugout, I don't know. But I don't know how long they can keep this up. But I'm buying into the Phillies.
All right. Before I get into why I'm buying lots and lots of stock of the Phillies, I'm guessing the Marlins took the extra juice that was supposed to be for the Heat in the finals. Because it seems as though the Marlins have been doing they stole the thunder a little bit from the Heat in what they were supposed to be doing. You know, the Heat should have won. I thought they should have won more than one game.
Hey, I mean, obviously, you can say that about the Heat and the Panthers. I mean, the Panthers
Well,
were doing
yeah,
it too.
yeah. The Panthers took a nice little dump in the Stanley Cup. Oh, I would say they did a worse than the Heat, even because they lost like 9-2 or something in last night's final. Like to lose the Stanley Cup, that was terrible. But either way, now I can get into why I'm putting my life savings in the Phillies right now. When you look at the pieces that have not been performing, like you said, Wheeler and Nola, I'm trying to have a little bit of faith in those guys because those guys have both been Cy Young candidates. To break it down even further, both been Cy Young candidates, obviously Nola, but for Wheeler in their time with the Phillies recently. So I'd like to think they have it in them. I also like to think that having Dave Dombrowski as our GM, he's going to make a trade. I'm not saying it's going to be a huge
He likes
trade. Yes. And I believe they're going to go out and get somebody. Now, right now, if you had to pinpoint for me the position they need, it's sort of tough. They got a lot of their pieces locked up where they want. The only thing, like even the pitching's been struggling, but you're not going to trade for a pitcher to kick Nola or Wheeler out of the rotation. Two things. Well, three. Bullpen help, which their bullpen hasn't been bad at all. but you can always use more bullpen help. Second thing, probably back end of the rotation guy. That would definitely be helpful. And then it's sort of a weird spot here, but I would say maybe a first baseman because with Hoskins being out, you need somebody for the rest of the season. It's kind of been a turnstile of who they've got over there. So maybe a sort of rental at first base. I don't know who's going to be available. A guy like Carlos Santana comes to mind from the Pirates, and I know he spent time in the with the Phillies earlier in his career, so a reunion could be possible. I don't know what other kind of names are out there, but that's just what comes to mind to me. Definitely buying the Phillies. Brewers now. Interesting one here. Sitting at 34 and 34, right on 500, second place in their division. What are we doing with the Brewers?
I'm gonna stay even with them. Um, I mean, obviously, I these central divisions I really haven't been paying too much attention to. But I mean, that's anybody's division right now. I had the Cardinals winning it. So for me, I feel like that can go to anybody. Um, I mean, even the Reds are playing good ball right now. So I I don't know. I'm gonna stay even just because I don't know.
It's a bit of a tough spot for them to be in right now because Pirates winning division, Reds creeping up right behind you. They're the next team on my list here to talk about. Uh, I think hold is sort of the spot, but then buy is a little bit enticing because they have the names to win the division. They have the names,
Yeah.
and other than the Cardinals debatably have better names, like a better lineup on paper. But the Brewers have the one. The Brewers have been showing up this season. It's tough for me, but I'm gonna lean by because I think they're gonna be able to turn it around and hopefully some of their rookies who started the season really hot, Bryce Turang, guys like that, they're gonna be able to turn it back on again here. Um, I'm also really hoping they don't trade Corbin Burns because then this would make my take probably not be very good. And obviously, those were rumors for a while that he would get traded, but hopefully that doesn't happen. Uh, but I think they'll win the division in the end. It's gonna be nah. I don't think it'll be close. The Pirates are good, but I don't think they're gonna win the division. Either way, bye for the Brewers. Staying in the NL Central, the Reds, like I just mentioned, 34 and 35, one game under 500, third place in the division. Now it's hard to quantify this to just this season, but that's kind of what I want to do for the Reds because it's easy to say bye because of the bright future they have. But for just this season, what are we doing with the Reds?
This is most likely going to come back to bite me, but I want to do it 110%. I'm going to buy into this team. I like the Reds. I know it's crazy to say. I know. But I like the Reds. I like what they're doing. They're having fun, man. And that's what it comes down to when you're playing ball. This team, I can guarantee they didn't expect to be in this position. I mean, like I said before, I thought the Cardinals were going to run away with this division. So to see the Reds hovering around 500, doing their thing, calling up De La Cruz, I think they're just a fun team. And it might come back to bite me, but I don't care because I like the Reds and I'm going to buy into them.
So I don't think I can buy the Brewers and the Reds. That's a little bit tough, logistically there. So I'm going to have to hit the hold button on the Reds. And, you took the words right out of my mouth. They're a very fun team. De La Cruz, Matt McLean, Jonathan India, Hunter Green, all these guys, Spencer Steer. It's tough because they've been doing so good. And nobody wants to ask the question, but the question's got to be asked. Do they come back down to earth a little bit? Because you can't all be NL Rookie of the Year candidates for the whole season. So I think that will happen. They'll come down a little bit as we get into the summer stages of the season, just because they're rookies still. They got time to improve, and they're going to need to improve some still. They got things to learn at the big league level, but I definitely like their future. That's why I'm going to go with hold. And we'll close it out with this. We talked about them earlier with the Phillies, the San Diego Padres. As we said, sitting at 33 and 34. Where's your money going with the Padres?
So yeah, this is another one of those cases where um it's with the division as well because the Diamondbacks are overperforming. Um and I hate using that word because they're a good team. So it's not like they're overperforming. It's just the fact that, they're just performing very well right now. But you have the Dodgers, and then of course you got the Padres. I don't know if the Diamondbacks are going to come down to earth a little bit, and kind of be the Padres that we expected them to be, I guess you can say. Um, but this Padres team is finally starting to turn things around a little bit. And because of that, and because of the talent on that team, there's no way I could see myself picking any other option than buy. I'm buying into the Padres. I think they're going to keep winning, and I think everything's going to click. And I'm not saying they're going to win the division now, but I think they are going to better themselves for a spot in October.
I'm going to agree with you on this. Buy, like you said, the pieces are all there, and right now they're clicking. Tatis, he's come back and he's been insane, during this stretch. And then when you think about their ownership has showed they're going to be aggressive. So you think that they're going to go out and make moves at the trade deadline, whatever it looks like. I don't want to even try and predict what it's going to look like for the Padres. I have no clue. And just the pieces are going to click, like you said. Manny Machado's too good to not click at some point in the season. Xander Bogaerts, the same thing. I'm sure you could tell me lots of stories about him beating up on your Yankees. And then
Yeah.
in the pitching staff, Blake Snell has just started. He's had two really, really nice back-to-back performances. Michael Waka somehow has been probably their best pitcher so far this season. Very strange to say,
Yeah.
as they were probably looking at him as like a back of the rotation guy, maybe even like a long reliever, and now he's like their number one starter this season. Insane. They're getting contributions from Gary Sanchez. Who would have thought that? Like 3 years
Oh my
ago,
God.
Gary Sanchez on the Padres.
Yeah.
You probably would have thought it'd be a blockbuster trade or something. No, the Yankees dropped him, and now the Padres picked him up after a short time with the Mets. It's a little strange to see that on his baseball reference in like 5 years, I'm sure. Either way, buying on the Padres, and that's going to close it out for this low buy and sell and hold. I guess there was a couple holds in there as well. Kyle, what do you got closing thoughts as we wrap up this episode?
Oh man. I think that's it, man. Obviously Yankees open a 3-game set against Boston, so let's go up to Fenway. Hopefully Stanton turns it around. But we'll see. And I don't know, man. I'd be pretty excited if I was a Phillies fan right now.
I am very excited right now. The A's about a month ago, it seemed like it was a guaranteed 3 wins, at least guaranteed 2 wins against them. Right now, you're a little bit more worried as they're coming off the heater, but I still feel pretty confident, and it's going to be just keep riding the wave. That's all I can say. Keep riding the wave, Phillies. Keep climbing up. Hopefully, the Marlins lose. I mean, it feels weird to be saying that we're competing with the Marlins, but that's where we're at right now. So, Phillies, take care of your business. And I mean, that's pretty much it for this episode. So, thank you guys for tuning in, watching, listening, however you got a hold of our content. We appreciate it. And yeah, it's going to do it for episode 16. We will see you on Monday.